Hello, greetings, and welcome to the unofficial PopCap PopCast, a podcast about the golden age of PopCap games by a couple of guys who were there at the time. I'm Steve Notley.
And I'm Isaac Aubrey, and we want to make sure everyone's aware that we do not represent PopCap or EA or PopCap under EA. We're just a couple of guys who are celebrating our time at the old PopCap of 2000 through the 2000s.
And what are we doing today, Isaac?
We are digging back into an interview with one Eric Tams, who helped us work through the later stages of Peggle and worked on some projects that were never released there at PopCap, and has a lot of great stories to tell.
All right, well then let's get right into it. Previously on the unofficial PopCap PopCast.
I was like, people aren't getting
Ah!
it. I was like, I have this thing right there. It's the most useful thing. It tells you can't do it. And everybody's just trying to, and then like eventually, like after a while, I was like, why did I just get rid of that? And then like I completely changed the orientation of, I can't remember. I think I put it on the floor or something. It was like, you can't do anything but put it on the floor. No, you're gonna have to get it. And then finally, like everybody went from like this is their least favorite puzzle to like their most favorite puzzle. And that it'll such it's like the idea is still good.
Yeah.
Well,
You just have to put it in a way that
I
people will
like
get
I mean
without
I'm
getting
really
distracted.
fascinated by this whole business of like working in design and trying to solve design problems. You know, you've got this idea of a ideal player, and you're kind of going, okay, like player, you should be able to figure this out. I'm creating this problem for you to solve, and it just becomes more and more frustrating when the player isn't doing what you think. Like you're just going like, what the hell is the problem here? Like every step has led you to this. This should not be a thing. And then you end up going into this spiral. Like the story I always tell about this is like, I think this was Bejeweled Adventures or something, one of these versions that didn't quite make it, or Bejeweled Towers or something, where it was like you play Bejeweled and you would power, and you had these sort of champion animals that could be triggered and do effects, right? Like as you played, you were sort of playing Bejeweled Blitz, but there was a timer or something, and you had like different Bejeweled animals that could do things, and most of them would just trigger automatically, but one of them was like there was a button that you had to click in order to do it. And what would happen when people were playing is they would never click the button. Why? Because they were too busy staring at the grid of gems. So what was the solution? And you could just see it happen, is like the button just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because it was just like the designer was
Over
so
here, over
focused on
here.
going like, hey, hit the button, when the obvious choice was get rid of that champion. Don't have a champion that requires you to take your attention away from the gem grid in order to hit the button. But they were just so stuck on that. And so it just became this sort of comedy routine of like, how big could we make the button in before the player notices it? Like, I think eventually the button ended up being like almost a third the size of the actual grid. And like as a designer, you look back at it and think like it's kind of comedy to see it, but when you're in that, you're trapped in it, right? Like the bigger
It's
button seems like the right solution.
it's so hard too because it's like I mean, hopefully you're usually working on a team with stuff, and like this is probably somebody's favorite guy, and right, it's the only way it can work is if it's so you really are like killing their darling if you propose that. But it's I mean, I felt so bad in Portal 2. We had like this section that just didn't work and it was gorgeous. It was like this underground section. I mean, there was still a lot of it that we shipped with. And we were like, I got very obsessed with the idea of people finishing games after like having people like peter out. It just makes me so sad.
Mhm.
Um, and we were just losing so many people. I was like, okay, well, I don't know how to say this. It was like, we have to cut out half of this. It's like the most beautiful thing you've ever done, Adam. Like, it's killing me. Like, look at this beautiful vista. Look at this beautiful thing. But like, people are just tuning out, so it's got to go.
So let's just move into some of the Peggle stuff. So tell us about
Yep.
story
It's
like that Prince of Toys sort of was like, okay, we're gonna not move forward in that, and then Ace left, and you got put on Peggle.
Yeah, so I'd started looking at a little like stuff I could help out with. So like Peggle, when it like went from that prototype to like a lot of levels in pretty quickly with like the really rough sort of art. And a lot of the interactions felt kind of crunchy still, the way that the guide would move, right? Like it would just like jump a lot and like little
Right.
things is like, okay, well, I'm not going to I'm just like looking for something to help. So I was like, are there a bunch of little polishy kind of things that I can start helping out with? And like, it was amazing chatting with Ace because I'd be like, I would basically suggest a thing and then he would immediately have it done within like 15 minutes. Um, and so like one of the big ones was like the way that the ball slides along the bricks. Like it used to like bounce along. I was like, it'd be really cool if it felt like you were grinding on it like a skateboard and like we could like put on some cool sparks and like do all this stuff. And so like um yeah, I think it was like he just got that done that day, and then it was probably the next day. He just like stood up. He was like, told me, is like, if anybody, I can't even remember. I think you were sitting next to me. Is like, if anybody asks, tell them I quit. And I was like, oh,
Well, we
I think it
had
was,
we had Ace on for a couple of episodes. I don't know if you've seen them, so we got that
we
end
got
of the
the,
story
Yeah,
from his
his
side.
his explanation was he needed to say something or do something so big that he wouldn't feel like coming back later, accidentally get tricked into coming back later. So that was his
oh man,
approach.
I wish he would have. It was so much fun
I miss the guy
working
so
on
much too.
stuff
Yeah.
together, and like, I don't know, I was like, oh man, I just felt like we started chatting about stuff, and it was like super fun, and
Well, but then now this is kind of a weird situation then because like so Ace and Soup Beer had been the driving force behind Peggle, Peggo at the time eventually became Peggle, and I suppose Wally like on the art side, but like, but then Ace like picks up and walks out, and the game is clearly this is not gonna be a Prince of Toys. We're publishing Peggle, no question, right? But now the only developer on it is gone, so you are now in the position of kind of going, okay, you got to bring this across the finish line. Like, so what was that like? Like,
yeah, I think Soup Bear just sat down and was like, hey, do you want to work on it? And I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything else. I didn't say it that way. I was like, I was excited. It's like I think everybody loved Peggle, even like in even the early forms, right? Like you could see that the magic was
Oh,
there.
totally.
So like it was like, and there's so many little things. Is like it's kind of my favorite stuff is like tweaking little stuff here and there and like trying to
and
make it feel
how
exactly right.
and how long was it? Do you remember? And it can be kind of vague, but like, how long was it? But after you started, it's like, okay, now Peggle's in your hands to now it's out, right? Like,
Yeah,
because it
it
was
it
mostly done, right? I mean, I think like most of the content had been created. I mean, so it was just sort of getting it in shape to go out the door kind of thing, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of art that had not been kind of finished. I remember looking at the save file format. Um, so like because it was versioned. So I think it was like it started when Ace handed it over, it was at version 12, and then I think it went out at version like 60 or something. So like version
Version
wise,
60 is 60.
yeah.
Uh,
Version wise, like it changed a lot. Because it went from like the pachinko version to like the full version like super quick. Like it was like pegs and levels and like he just blasted so much of the content out for that game. Like
well, and I remember
it felt
for
very
many for quite some time, the game was all there minus the characters were there, but like there was just tons of backgrounds to do. So you could play all these levels, but they'd just be pegs on a black screen, right? So that was one of the big things is just Walter having to paint, like 70 or however many. I guess it's like five per. So yeah, 50 or then so 55 fully rendered paintings for each background, right? That has to be integrated in and fit nicely with the peg layout.
That was the bottleneck and
Yeah,
is
it
the
was just
bottleneck for
like
so many
just tons
games,
and
just
tons
art.
and tons of like heavy duty artwork. Uh and of course like the character creations and but I think even the UI and that sort of stuff, well, and see it's yeah, see like the finessing the UI and the exact look of like what the framework, what the the game looked like, right? Like the Peggle meter and all that sort of stuff, the fever meter and all that's kind of junk. But then yeah, just like going, can't ship the game with a bunch of black screens, right? Like we do need all this art, even though that is a thing where under certain circumstances your developer can just be kind of twiddling his thumbs going, all right, I'm just waiting, like the next time I get a piece of art, I put it in the game and we're like 2% closer to being, ready to ship it.
No, I had so much fun though, because it was like the number of things that were like core stuff that needed to be done. The was not a ton of it, so I could basically just get in there and noodle on everything. We did the dynamic music that would like ramp up as you were going into
Right.
levels, and MLJ started working a couple months after on Peggle. So he started doing like some fun sound stuff. So we like got some interesting sound things in there. So it was mainly just like super fun just getting to polish it over and over and over again. And then, like I would love when people finish stuff. So like we had that beta program, and like we could see where people were getting stuck. And it always surprises me how people, I mean, if you think about it anecdotally, how many games do you like get to a point and then you just stop playing, right? Like
Right.
it's probably
Yep.
every single game you play right now. But we had like, I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was like the first Tula level. Like we were losing 60% of our playtesters on that one level just because it was hard. And it was like, okay, well, maybe we could just tweak this a little bit. And then like, just a little bit of tweaks like that, like reordering some stuff, changing the level order to like
Yeah.
where it felt like a natural progression of things. People like all of the bumps got ironed or
Right, right,
sanded off.
right. Yeah, because I mean, there were dozens, literally dozens of levels. And I mean, and again, this came up when we were talking with Ace, but I mean, when you're using the level editor to create levels, one thing that you kind of naively do is you go, "Oh, I'm gonna make like the Seattle skyline with bricks, right?" And and he sort of said like he had this conversation with Walter about how, it's not representative. I can't remember exactly what the terms were. Isaac, do you remember how that conversation
I,
between
I I remember the conversation. I don't remember exactly what
what
he
did
was.
it's
I
it's
remember Ace saying that it didn't really matter the peg layout. It was always going to be fun. I think that ended up not really being the case.
Yeah, well, it's very easy. Like for example, you go, I think there's one of the levels where it spells out the word fever, right?
Yeah,
And you
you
go, "Oh,
hit
that's
something, the ball
fun."
just drops
But
straight
then
down.
but then it's just like, nah, that's not fun. Having to bash your
No,
way through a bunch of bricks, the ball doesn't do fun things under. So there's lots of ways that you could create levels where it's like, "Oh, this kind of sucks. This
and
just
I don't know
traps
if
the
this.
ball and nothing
Uh,
fun happens."
I don't know if this came in Peggle Nights or if I'm just making it all up, but wasn't there a little bit of code put in at some point to make like a ball bounce a little more friendly toward other orange pegs? There's like some background behind the scenes mojo that was like
There
kind
was
of
with the Zen ball, but
there was the
That
Zen ball, and it might have been just like a simplified. I don't know. For some reason, I seem to remember there's some sort of like friendliness to it that
I mean, there was stuff that you could, and this is stuff that I got into very heavily. Well, let's just talk about like Peggle Nights, right? So because once Peggle went out the door, I think we basically more or less immediately said, okay, let's do a follow up. And I remember, so now I don't remember exactly who was running the show on that either, other than
I also don't remember. It was not MLJ, I think, at that point. I think that he had like it basically like, so I feel like I had three phases to my PopCap career, right? Like there was like the first, 6 months or whatever, or 8 months working on Prince of Toys that just felt like completely rudderless. And then there was the stretch of time on Peggle, which was like, super fun, just like any random polishy thing that I can think of, you can put into the game, and like, it could take all of it because it's just like a big basket of joy. So like the more that you add in there, the more fun it is. And then after that, I felt like completely fractured. So I was like, okay, work on the ActiveX version. Now let's work
mm,
on the iPhone version. Now let's work on the iPod version. Now let's, go to Dublin and work on the feature phone version.
right,
And
yeah.
it was like,
Well, and like things like I mean, the idea that an iPod, you can even play a game on an iPod, And like we're on the surface, it's like, oh, it's actually awesome because that little wheel controller on an iPod, not an iPad, but an iPod, it's perfect for Peggle, but the computing horsepower is not there to be able to do like a heavy physics-based game like that.
I mean, it was fun, right? Like I don't
Well,
know if
but
you
that
ever
was
got
like a
the
Dan Benet joint, right? As he was the one who sort of cracked the code on how to make a Peggle version that could actually play on the iPod. But I just want to sort of try to get my head around because Peggle, I mean, because then Peggle Nights, somewhere in there was when I sat down and wrote that instruction book about how to use the editor, right? And then it was like, okay, now we're making Peggle Nights. Now I don't know whose brainwave it was. It's like we're gonna call it Peggle Nights. It'll be like Baywatch Nights, and it'll be their dreams because that I just remember that was sort of what was handed to me, and then that was my job to go, okay, now I'm going to figure out what all their dreams are going to be and how they and 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 much more just sort of like, okay, now we are going to try to create the levels and the art sort of in sync to tell a story, right? Like each master will have a dream that is sort of told in 5 levels, and those levels will be sort of constructed and then illustrated, and so is much more sort of narratively intended, even though that can sort of leave you in a bit of a box where it's like, well, okay, now in order to depict this, like let's say it's Claude, and Claude wants to be a giant monster, so it's like, okay, well, here are the beats of that thing, and that means that you kind of are locked into these images, which means that you are locked into these level designs. But then if it's like, well, if it turns out that this level design is locked into this image which concludes his story, but this level design sucks and it's no fun and it's too hard, what do you do? That's the thing that I remember being, that was sort of my focus, right?
well, and I
Because I
think
remember, like, I did a ton of it. I probably did about a third of the episodes or the levels. You did about a third, and then like Lance, who else worked
I
on?
think I
I
think
made a
Lance
level.
did.
Pardon?
I made a level.
Oh,
I think
Lance
Lance
did
did
some.
all of the levels, and then we used probably about a third of them because he was just like, holy, and just like was started to be prolific, just level after level after level.
well,
I was
because I
like,
remember sketching out, like, basically doing sort of little cartoons, essentially, of each one of these dreams, and then kind of. So I know I did a significant number of them.
oh
Where,
no, yeah, sorry. I was just like, he
yeah,
produced a prodigious quantity of them.
right.
I
But
don't
then,
know that
yeah, like
I
trying
think
to
that
do it
once we
in.
started getting into the pattern of like playing it and then trying to fit it to the art, like basically, you ended up, it was just like you have so many constraints, right? Like you end up like, you're like, okay, well, this art was fun, but the level's terrible, or this level fun's, the art's terrible. Like, how do we bring them together? And so
But I
it's,
mean, there were some really fun, like, I mean, the Splork levels, for example. It's like, oh, okay, he's into bowling. So we had like a bunch of different, but then you'd go, okay, well, so here's a level that looks like a couple of bowling pins, and you go, okay, well, and then you play it, and you're like, like it's okay, and it's like, and certainly it's like, okay, this is not going to be a difficult thing to illustrate, right? I mean, the bricks are laid out like bowling pins, so it's like, okay, just draw some bowling pins. That's not going to be a hard thing to do a background for. But it's like, well, now, but how do we give it some special sauce? And it's like, oh, okay, well, what if we set it up so that, like, here's a bowling pin, it's made out of a line of bricks, but then each brick will do a little 360 rotation by itself, right? So then you'd have one that's just kind of going blah, 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 and the other one going blah, 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 like, and so, like, trying to find weird little ways to sort of give some of these kind of vanilla level designs some pop, right, was a real crazy job. And then I guess, as you say, like, at some point maybe it was Jeremy. I think it was, now that we're here and talking about it, it was Jeremy who was like, hey, we've got like a hot new Peggle or particle emitter. So now it's go particle crazy. Go through the whole thing and make particles, but not just particles. Sometimes the particle would be like, here's a level with Warren in it that's shaped like a tomb, like Warren's thing was kind of like a Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so, like, the particle is just a huge JPEG that covered most of the screen except for this one little hole that a particle behind it could kind of glitter in to create sort of a fake visual effect, right? And so you'd have like a whole particle. They're just like, well, this is technically a particle, but it's static and it's the size of the screen. And it's basically the background pasted on top of the background with some big piece of it cut out. Isaac, you look like you want to say something.
That's beyond, like, Eric had probably left when the particle thing came in,
I
it
guess
sounds like.
so.
So
Yeah.
should we maybe move on to talking about Skpow and
Yeah,
what was that? Where did that like kind of work into things? Like, you were in the middle of Peggle Nights. Were you doing that? I seem to remember some nights at PopCap where like we're all there at like 9 o'clock at night, and that's when Skpow was happening.
Yeah, so like definitely, so like Prince of Toys was like hard, and then working on Peggle was just super fun. And then afterwards, like I was saying before, it was like my time was just so fractured. Like I can't remember like I had like days that I was supposed to be working on Peggle Nights, and then I had like days that I would do porting, and then I like made a demo for Square Enix for Gyromancer.
Oh,
So
cool.
like I had to,
Well, and like Peggle
I'm not.
Extreme, I think you had a hand in, like
Yeah,
the little mini Peggle version that went out with the orange box, I think, and stuff like that.
yeah,
So already
I
kind of some of the
what?
connection with Valve there. Well, so now with Skpow, I would say that like so Matt and I had gotten Star Control up and working on the 3DO. So we, our and so we would actually be playing, Star Control like dueling in the fun room, and people walk by and watch because it's a cool game, and it's like, oh man, it'd be so great to be able. And so now I guess at some point, see, this is like where I don't quite remember how it was, where you must have come in and said, hey, if you guys want to start making some spaceships, I could start writing code for them.
Well, and yeah, it was like I was just feeling so like discombobulated and creatively unfulfilled. I was just not working on anything in a continuous manner, and like it was like too many. It was just too many cooks in the like
Right.
because we were trying to figure out how to do the producer stuff with Peggle Nights. So like I'd get in conversations with people I'd never met before, and they're like, "Oh, I'm working on Peggle." I'm like, "I don't even know your name. Like, how are you working on this game?" And like, why are we like having this meeting? Like, there's a whole meeting that you weren't in, and you weren't in, and you weren't in, and it was like deciding what to do with the game. I'm like, I can't understand what's happening anymore, right? Like, and so like this was like a little bit of clawing back, like a sense of sanity. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna work on something with my friends, and I can be in control of what's happening, and like kind of get back a feeling of enjoying what we're working on. And like you were saying, it was just like the work day would end, and then like 6 o'clock happens, and then it's like pull out the laptop and like, all right, time to start doing some coding for fun.
It's
And
it's so weird because I mean I'm one of the people who should have a clear memory of this and I don't, right? I just what I do remember is what you were talking about. Like I remember that, yeah, like we'd finish, like 5 o'clock, whatever, roll around, then it's like, okay, everybody's gone home, let's work on Skpow. Like it would just and then it would be me and Matt and you, and then eventually you, Isaac, as well. We're also there, just kind of going, okay, so here we are. We're doing our thing, working on this Star Control clomage, the clone plus homage,
it
where it's
felt like
just
the
like, all
time
right,
was
well, gonna
changing.
like we design a spaceship, and I'll sort of explain to you what I thought it did and how it worked, and blah blah blah, and I, and so like, and Matt and I would be basically doing the same thing. We'd be like coming up with the spaceship, coming up with the alien, coming up with the like explanation of what it did, and then Matt would just like, and then it's like, okay, here's a bunch of art assets for a fucking cool looking spaceship. Here's a bunch of art assets for what the aliens look like, and I would be basically doing the same thing, except my art assets look like garbage. Like, but my ships I think were equally fun to play, and then incredibly, like you would take these things, and then like an hour later, it's like, okay, here we go, let's play them. Okay, Isaac.
I just would like to hear what Eric has to say about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh, it's just like a perfect little arena, right? Like, if you have an idea for how it can work, like anything can kind of fit. It's like the ultimate, it's like Star Wars, right? Or Star Trek, I mean. Like you know, it's like, what does this race mean to you? It's like, I don't know, it's the guy with the big nose. And you're like, okay, what is the, you know? So it's like anything that we came up with, it was so much so easy to find the gameplay for. And it was just like the perfect little arena that you could put anything into.
This was this sort of like our little extracurricular thing that we were just doing to have fun and just going like, this is pretty cool, you know? Like we were making our own little star control and then you went off on your honeymoon and then came back. It's like, oh, by the way, I just made AI for all the ships. So now it's a single player game. You don't have to play player versus player
As
anymore.
one
You can
does
play
on their
with the
honeymoon,
computer.
right? You know.
Yeah, no,
And I
it's
was blown away that you were able, and then now we're bringing it back to this chess stuff where it's like how you were able to sort of abstract out the rules of combat in such a way as to be able to give each one of these ships like a little brain that could respond and make it act so that it posed a challenge, right?
well, the secret is there was a hurricane warning that was coming through, so we can go to the beach. So I had plenty of time to like, but you know, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like you figure out what are the common things that you actually think about. Like there's facing and like how fast your projectiles move, and like you try to figure out a way that you can represent all of the projectiles as one projectile, and then make decisions based on that.
I guess. And then it's just sort of like you're always like when you're playing Skpow or any kind of, 2D ship based, which it's crazy that that's not a bigger genre, right? It's just like PvP, asteroids slash space war. I mean, Space War is one of the first computer games ever made, right? But like, and I guess there's just sort of generic things where it's like, okay, you are all, I mean, I suppose it's similar to naval battles in general. It's like you are always trying to turn such that you're trying to position yourself out of their firing position, and you're trying to put them in your firing position. And if you could sort of define what that means sort of mathematically, then that's most of the business, right? It's like get a firing solution and then fire.
But
Get
it did
out
help.
of the opponent's firing solution. Don't let it shoot at you. Try to shoot at it.
It's definitely easier to write the AI for it if you wrote all the code for how everything works.
I guess.
This is like, well, I know what all the things are going to do.
But it's I mean, for any players or any listeners should really should go and check out Star Control. There's like I believe a free download called the Ur-Quan Masters. So you could just get it and play it. And it's like so it's one of the great sci-fi adventures of all time, like the adventure mode, but like just the melee mode is fascinating because like each ship is so expressive of the
Right.
alien race that it comes from. And even though like the controls are kind of fundamentally simple, where it's like, look, it's just rotate left, rotate right, thrust, fire, and special. So that's just like 5 inputs. That's it. And yet it's like, oh, but you could kind of like everything like but the power usage and the crew, like so your health and the way that your projectiles move and the specials, like every special is special. It does something that nothing else does. So each and every one of these ships just becomes its unique thing in a way that you go, this should just be a big fat spreadsheet and I'm just fiddling with numbers, but it doesn't feel that way. They all feel like their own thing.
Well, and you look at each one and it's like, okay, well, this one's fast, right? Like, what's the thing that would go well against it, right? Like, oh, if I can get like a fast direct fire shot, right? Like I can like plan where it's going to be and hit it, or I can get a tracking projectile. So like you start like thinking about like, yeah, it's like you fill in the Pokemon matrix of like, okay, like, steel is the best. And you're like, well, except for it's terrible against fighting, it's terrible against fire. And
Right.
like they expressed that really well in like the ship design. And I thought we were getting like
Yeah,
I mean, we had a ton of fun, like just like the ship's terrible against this ship, or the ship's amazing against this ship, and like,
so I mean, you created this new version of it. Now, do you have feelings about whether like can we put the link to the version that you made on our show notes?
uh, well, somebody should test it first.
Yeah,
I guess.
seems like
So
So
something we
maybe
should be
okay, well we
careful
won't
about,
do
maybe.
that now. We won't do that now, but like
Uh,
stay tuned,
well,
listeners. Maybe it'll happen in the future.
I am curious what killed Skpow then. So it was never like given the green light as a game at PopCap, and was
Right.
it when you took off, Eric, that it stopped, or did it
No,
stop before then?
I
well,
mean, I
I
think there
felt
was like a go ahead.
I was definitely feeling like the tides were changing in terms of game development. It was starting to feel like, casual games are still fun, but like there's going to be an audience for games that are not just for the casual players, right? Like people who like big games would like to be able to play something that's small and fun. And so like to me, it felt like completely obvious is like, oh, if we start making games that are of this size, right? Like they're super quick to make. Like they've got like usually like a lot of the ones that did come out, right? Like it's more about like the feel of the simulation instead of making a lot of content. So like there was just it felt like a huge opportunity. So I was super excited to work on it. For some reason, like people just didn't want to go out of like the core competency of the company at that time.
Well, and I
And
think there was go on.
I mean, we talked to people who were like, "Well, here are all the reasons why it doesn't work as a casual game." And we're like, "Well, we agree."
Well, yeah, and that was such a weird
It's a
thing where
fun game.
yeah, it was like, and I think this was something that PopCap really struggled with for years, like during this process, this era that you're talking about, and after, where it's like, what are we? What kind of games do we make? It's like, oh, we only make casual games. Oh, we only make mobile games. Oh, we only, and it's like every time you're saying we only do blank, so we're not gonna do this fun thing is like a mistake, and that just kept happening. And what was craziest about it is that PopCap would continually say we are this and we do stuff in this box, and then like 2 years later it'd be like, actually scratch that, we're in another box. And so like Peggle 2 eventually was like a console game. And it's like, okay, this is the only console game we're ever gonna make. And it's like, well, but we made that one. We could have made Skpow. And I
Right.
remember there was this very brief era, it might have been like a week or so, where there was some talk about like, hey, maybe we should elevate Skpow and actually be serious about maybe developing it. I think there were some complaints about like, well, why do these guys get to work on this game? It's like, because we've been putting in our own time on it for hours and hours in the like on nights and weekends. So we, the only reason it exists is because we've been doing it, making it outside of the company, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
And I
Uh,
had such a good time at that point because we'd come in, it was like, get in 9 in the morning. I'd work on some Skpow. I'd go home, I'd be so tired. Like I'd go home and I swear this happened for like a whole month. Like I'd shut the door and I'd forget to like lock it because I was so tired. Then I'd wake up. I was seriously thought somebody had a key and was screwing with me because I'd wake up every morning and the door would be slightly ajar. I'm like, I know I came in and I closed the door and locked it. And just like every day I wake up and like, I can't imagine being the people in the apartment with me. They're like, what is with this guy always leaving his door open? I was just like so tired by the time I'd come home. Like I couldn't put two and two together and like actually like close and lock the door properly. But I just flop down and then like do it the next morning.
So, well, let's talk a bit about the process of you leaving PopCap, and then like because went to work for Valve, right? Just like one of the classic great companies.
Yeah, newsflash, folks. Eric's worked on way bigger, cooler games than Prince of Toys.
Yeah, like Eric is another one of these guys for whom the PopCap slice of, well, so let's start with this, right? Like in the same way that when we talked to Ed Allard, a couple of weeks ago, it was sort of like for me and Isaac, we look back at PopCap and go, I mean, well, for me it's a little different because I actually did work there for like 17 years. But like a lot of folks like Ed, they were there for maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years, but they had like a very storied
7 or 8, I
career
think.
prior and after. Whereas like for me, like it was like, well, I did blah 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 all this stuff, and then I worked for PopCap for like almost 2 decades. So PopCap was like such a huge chunk of my professional life, but like it's a relatively small one for you. But now would so what?
I'm
Eric,
sorry
can
to
you?
interrupt, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
the
making the
sun is
weird
cutting
light.
Yeah, I
across
think
your face.
we're getting like the exact lens flare. There we go. Yeah.
Our planetary neighbor is.
So how do you feel about PopCap in the context of your entire career in games, I guess? Like how does it fit?
Well, I mean, I had a ton of fun working there and met a bunch of like my friends. So I definitely like it's one of the best things that happened. And then, it's bad having adversity, but like, you develop so many different patterns. Like I wasn't kidding when I said is like, that's literally just talking about the problems I was having with Prince of Toys, like completely changed the way I approach game design problems now, right? Like
Formative.
And I'm sure that people that playtest are super frustrated because I'll just sit behind them silently judging them. But it's the best way to get real information is
You
like
did that
seeing what
recently,
people are
but I
doing.
was I wasn't I wasn't offended. That was fine.
But it's human nature, like when you see somebody struggle to help them,
Mhm.
and you have to see what they struggle with, and then you have to get really humble. Be like, okay, like is this a problem? Because it's never them, right? Like your solution is to never get like different players. Your solution is to like change the way you're presenting it. Like I think about it like communication, right? Like if I'm saying something to you and you don't understand it, it's my fault as the person that's communicating. Like maybe I should be saying something different, right? Like maybe it's not the words I'm using, but
Right.
like there's there's not a single person out there that I think you can't communicate to on some level if you like pay attention to what you're saying and how it's being received. No, I loved working there. And I don't even know that I would have got the job at Valve if I hadn't like learned those lessons.
Because I mean,
Because
like Valve is, I think, still a very, very, I mean, it's a very well regarded, and it's responsible for some of the biggest, most well loved games of all time, and I think Valve has a generally pretty decent place among the stars for gamers as far as like, yep, they're good. I mean, people are still going, where's the next Half-Life or where's Portal 3 or whatever, but and of course you went off there. I mean, I remember reading about the hiring process at Valve, and it talked about how it's this sort of promised land of like they talked about the T thing, like you like where it's like you had to have this sort of your core competency always had to be coding, but then you needed some other abilities like the crossbar of the T. That's what they were always looking for at Valve. So if you rolled in and if you had the core competency and then like enough sort of breadth and then it was just like, and then I think I read something about like they come in and it's like they don't onboard the way that other places do. You basically just sort of sit down and figure out how to make yourself useful. Uh,
Well, and yeah, that's how it was. I went onto the team. It was actually the Portal 2 team when I started, but like we were making a completely different game. I kind of felt like the same problem, right? Like we were making a puzzle game, and it had all these fun mechanics to it. And it felt very similar in, the microcosm is like Prince of Toys, right? Like we have these cool mechanics, and then we started to sit down and think about it. And like, but the way that we're building this game, like you could manipulate objects in a way that would like grow them or shrink them, and that would change their behavior. And so we're making puzzles about this. And at some point, sitting down, I'm like, oh, you don't actually know what it's going to do before you do it. And so you're not actually solving a puzzle. We basically had made like an adventure game in a puzzle game's clothing. And so we'd get people that were playing it and they'd be like, they would have similar kind of thing is like they wouldn't know what to do. We probably need to change what we're doing. We're never going to get to the point where we have a puzzle game that people are satisfied with if the puzzles aren't things that you can puzzle through.
right.
It sounds so dumb to say it, but it was so charming is the problem. It's like there was all these great interactions, right? Like it was set in old Aperture, which kind of inspired a lot of the old Aperture stuff that you see in Portal 2. And there was like androids that would get tiny, and then the chicken would chase them around, and
Right.
the android would get big and chase the chicken. It was like it's so charming and so humorous. And we had Karen Prell, who's one of the Jim Henson animators, that was doing all these cute animations for stuff, and it was like everything's just like so charming and fun. You don't want to delete it, but then that's the only way that you're going to get through it is by
Well,
deleting all this stuff and doing something else.
it's remarkable how like because a game like Portal now that's like much more of a sort of AAA kind of deal where it's bigger in scale, by orders of magnitude from anything we would have worked at PopCap. And you're dealing with like getting in Stephen what's his name to do the voice of like you're getting major, Hollywood people to do like voice acting and yada yada. These are like serious multi-million dollar productions that take years of development. And it's impressive that you guys, are sort of that you're describing that, well, you're still dealing with kind of the same problem that we were wrestling with Prince of Toys on a vastly bigger scale, and you solved it, right? Like you were able to actually not just go, well, we went down a blind alley and now we don't know how to get out, you were able to sort of turn around and deliver on like, a really good game, right? But like the stakes are so high and the number of people involved, that have to be simpatico to make that work is incredible, really.
And that's one thing that I think worked pretty well is like we stayed as a relatively small team until we kind of figured out all of the gameplay. So I don't think we got more than 12 people until we kind of like figured out all the core mechanics that we're going to do, like including like the last big one is like we thought that we could do some multiplayer, and so we're like, okay, how does this function? So that was like that was one of the fun things I got to work on was like, what do you actually do in multiplayer, right? Like,
right.
is it like are we still in the era of like Half-Life where you have deathmatch and some kind of competitive thing? And we're like, okay, like we tried a whole bunch, Dave, one of the other engine programmers, he like made like the ability to like fling yourself through. Everybody could have portals and you were flinging yourself through and trying to grab. It was like what's it called? Quidditch from Harry Potter.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
And it was terrible, but he was great because he had made all the different things to try all of my crazy ideas. And then at some point we're just like, well, maybe we should just make the game be about like the same thing that it's been about before. Like you're solving puzzles, but with your friend and using, which it seems obvious, but
I'm trying to remember. Like, I've finished Portal and Portal 2, but I'm trying to now. But I got to admit, it's like some of the other mechanics, like the acceleration slide goo and that kind of thing. That's Portal 2, right?
Yeah.
And okay, so like Portal 1 was essentially the portal was the mechanic, whereas the Portal 2 was the one that had like some of these oddball additional, like the bounce goo and the slide goo and that kind of stuff. Okay, right.
It was my favorite kind of thing because it's like all the things that bugged me about the first game. I was like, all right, how do I get change this? So one of my least favorite was the bouncing energy balls.
Right.
Because like I could never tell where they were, and like you're trying to do the puzzle and the resets a mess. It was like, it would be great if you could just see where it was going to go the whole time.
Well, so Isaac, you've been a little quiet this time. I feel like I've been kind of really monopolizing the conversation. I apologize, but
well, you're excited. You get excited by these things, and we love that. We love the excitement. In fact, that's how it's always been through it working at PopCap and working around you. It's like get Steve cranked up and let him go, and we're just gonna suck all the good juice out, and then he'll just be left as this just like babbling carcass in the corner,
juiceless husk,
hot mess.
I have the joy of getting to work with you on all of my projects. So
I
this
guess
is why you have to talk.
True, yeah,
these are your projects.
Wait, no,
this
is a great moment to talk about when Eric left PopCap, and it ended up being the sort of thing. I think you were getting an offer at Valve, right? And or you just wanted to kind of balance, unless you could get a better deal going at PopCap, and PopCap was real penny pension at the time. So I don't know. That sounds right.
Right. So I think I knew the writing was on the wall when I saw the bonus program that they announced.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, this is so complicated in a way to tell you that nobody's going to get any bonus money.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, like I just like making games, so I wasn't really thinking about money, and like it got me thinking. It's like, oh man, this is terrible. Maybe I should be thinking about this. And so I was like, okay, like, am I doing the things I want? And it's like, well, used to be, but not anymore. So like, what am I doing this for? And it's like, oh, can I work on something that I really enjoy? And so like, that's why we're trying to work on things outside of it. And like, once that wasn't going, I'm like, okay, well, why am I here? And so I just started looking around. Yeah.
And then there was the meeting after we have our Friday meetings at PopCap where we all get together and talk about what's going on. And it was announced that Eric Tams is no longer with us, at which point Steve piped up in the middle of the audience and chanted your name out letter by letter at top volume, cutting off our CEO mid-sentence and basically just letting the world know that Eric Tams' presence was going to be missed. And it was super awkward.
I got a bit of a talking to about
but it was also awesome at the same time. It's one of those things that I can still see just vividly because it was such a landmark moment for PopCap.
And I guess it's true. Yeah, I mean, we did work together on all of this because it was like Prince Toys, Peggle. I mean, I was in involved in a fairly limited degree for the original Peggle. I mean, like, but then yeah, I mean, I was all in on Peggle Nights, and then yeah, we the Skpow, even though
So
we
it's
didn't
good that we've
eventually.
got both of you in on this particular podcast because that was, yeah, you guys
And
were
I'm
strapped to each
definitely
other.
glad that we got to dig in a bit more on that Prince of Toys because again, like I really do feel like these oddball misfires have are just as instructive as some of the hits as well. So
I feel like you learn a lot more. At least I do, right? Like when you kind of luck into the thing that works, right? Like I mean, how many directors do you see that have, or writers like have a big hit afterwards? Like sometimes you just get lucky, and it's so that way a lot with games, right? Like you see somebody that comes out with something amazing, and then their next thing's terrible, right? It's hard without the struggle, like.
yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah,
success,
yeah.
success sort of seems to just like when you watch a biography or something, you're always kind of going like, well, I know that this works out for the person because they wouldn't be making a movie about them if they weren't a if it didn't go. It's like, yep, Einstein is going to discover relativity. Oppenheimer is going to make the bomb, right? Like he's not going to not invent the atomic bomb here. So then the success, we're so related to narratives of success, and it just seems the inevitability of it, which we like hearing about things that succeed, but it's also sort of a bummer to just go, oh, well, I just wasn't hit with the success wand, like like success is just this wonderful thing that happens to people, not me, others. Someone's just blessed and it's just like, oh, it's destiny, right? It just happened. We don't tell stories about failure in this world
But
as often as I think we should. I
and
mean, I can see
it's
why, because failure stories are a bummer, but it's important to know something about it. It's kind of a weird direction for me to go here. We might cut it out, but I don't know.
and I think if you have a game that's like easily understood, it's like why people make sequels all the time. It's just easier to know, but it's like so much more fun to work on something new. And like I I don't know. I am kind of addicted, I think, to like the chance at failure, right? Like having that's the best part for me for any game when you're like, we don't know what it is, we're gonna figure it out, and it's going to be super fun. You just have no idea, and you have to test it out, and you have to try it on people, and you have to see the reaction.
And
And
it's a little scary at first, but you find that special sauce and you realize you opened the right door and everyone's seeing what you're seeing. That's a pretty special moment. That's an endorphin rush, I think.
and it's nice too when you have like a game like one of the games that I looked at. We had Artifact card game at Valve, and that one did not do very well.
Mhm.
And it was a very similar kind of thing when started like digging into what was the big problem that people were having with it, and it was almost the same thing as like certain people. So let me give you a little context for the game. So you had these three lanes, and like depending on the cards that you played, you had to respond, but then you could pass. And if you passed, that would change the order that you could play your card. And some people, that was the entire game that they were playing, is controlling this order. And some people just wanted to play cards and see things blow up.
Right.
And it was almost like completely split. Like, and all the hardcore players that loved the game loved this, like, this back and forth and like being in control. And it felt like you were really like putting it to your opponent when you were able to just thwart them. And like sometimes nothing even happened. Like, your big thing was that you prevented them from playing the card. And you got this huge sense of joy from completely destroying their whole plan. That just doesn't necessarily translate, right? You look at similar card games, so like Hearthstone, right? Like what happens on the board is representative of the state, more or less. And so if you are looking at things and you destroy a bunch of stuff, that's good. And like that could be one of the things in Artifact. Like destroying all of your opponent's creatures might be a terrible idea. But you have no idea because like that you're not playing the game that the other people are playing.
So is it fair to say also that the majority of time you spent at Valve, ever you have spent so far, because you're still there, has been spent on Dota?
It's probably true.
Yeah.
I was a huge Dota fan. I don't know if you remember, I used to buy all of the Warcraft 3 battle chests from EB Games. So I'd
Awesome.
like trek through there on the way in so I could get enough keys to install. And then I don't know if you guys ever got in on it, but I did a bunch of Dota nights for Dota 1 in the PopCap office.
That sounds Faintly, I was never one to get in on like that kind. So wait, now, so what would happen at a Dota night?
I mean, it's a 5v5 competitive multiplayer game.
Right.
And so, you make teams and you choose your heroes, and like, it's very you do the Skpow thing, right? Like each hero is unique and it's got all these fun powers, and you come up with your team composition, and you're like, I'm gonna cast this spell, and then he's gonna cast this spell, and he's gonna cast this spell.
Well, so I mean, Isaac, do you got anything else you wanna hit here, or
What's going on now? Or yeah,
Working
you
on
probably can't talk about it, but are you
working
excited
on a
about
new
it?
thing
Yeah,
that's not something anybody's seen because I can't
cool,
help
cool.
myself.
is it
Yeah,
gonna
and
blow the world open? Is it gonna change everything? It's gonna be
Eh, you know,
another Half-Life
I,
where it's just
I
gonna
hope that
rewrite what people like, what shooters can be.
I hope that usually everything that I work on, people will see something they haven't seen before.
That's
I'm
cool.
just
We'll see.
well, I'm excited you're still there. That's such a cool place to have landed post PopCap and to still be there. You've been at Valve for 15 years now, something like that.
18 years.
18 years. I love it. That's great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, even though you're not feeling good. It's been
Yeah.
great catching up in this
No,
format and learning things about you we didn't know before. I didn't know you
Yeah.
came up on a military base and that you
Well, it
approach
wasn't quite on a
computers.
military base. It was just right next to where we were.
Next, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm really, I'm super glad you came on as well because I really enjoyed really digging in on some of that stuff.
Well, it's
Well,
nice hearing your version of it too, just because like my memory of the details can be kind of hazy sometimes. So I
well,
feel
that's a
like
big
you've got the
thing.
writer brain. You remember all of the details really well.
I remember some parts, but I got to tell you, one of the things about this podcast is me trying to assemble, like, get a working copy of my own memories of these events because a lot of there are big holes, big patches. There's whole chunks. Like, eventually, I've got to pull out a bunch more people. I really want to start drilling into PVZ2, for example, because there's just a ton of there's just a ton of stuff I never saw, right? Like, I was working on different kinds of Peggle things for a lot of the opening and creation of Peggle PVZ2. There's quite a bit that I did see, once I finally arrived there, but there's tons I didn't. And even the stuff that I was present for, I'm like, I couldn't tell you what year it was. A lot of it too is because we just sort of offload all of our memories on it, like, oh well, if I had Burrito, I could give you a blow by blow that was by the minute, but instead can't even tell you what year this happened.
It's been kind of a fun thing with the podcast is getting people on to try and remember this stuff and patch things together. And it seems to be creating like kind of an extra dimensional view of PopCap that each one of us on our own just doesn't really have, or it's just all foggy. But I don't know, getting all these different perspectives after all these years has been pretty cool. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer to having this big presentation of something that is just above and beyond what any one of us could do on our own.
And like, objectivity is a myth. There's no such thing as objectivity, but it can be approached. The more subjectivities you combine, you can sort of asymptotically approach the actual objective reality.
It's interesting, like I like your idea of talking about the golden age, because like in some ways I feel like when I got hired, that was the golden age was over. I was part of the group that was hired, I think, to just grow the company for growing the company's sake, because I think it was post sale decision or like
It
as a
was,
goal.
well,
I think that was probably part of it, but at the same time, like it still didn't happen for quite a few years after that.
But
You
because-
know?
yeah, because-
you had to grow for growing's sake.
well, right, yeah,
Right,
because
so-
I mean, like the PopCap didn't sell until 2011, right? Like we talked about that a bunch of episodes ago. I don't even remember when the original Plants vs. Zombies, the years that kind of represented like the beginning of that development to its release, and then all the rest of it. And like that's the only thing that people now even care about, right? Like people don't even remember Bejeweled, even though for the time we were there, Bejeweled was everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, we kind of frame it as just everything that happened before the acquisition in a lot of ways, even though like, and that's another thing, as we dig into this more and more, the build up to the acquisition becomes so much more obvious, I guess.
Right.
We're all kind of in our own little worlds thinking about this, working on that. Well, that actually was happening in the bigger picture.
Yeah, that was one of our sort of first points that we tried to make in our first couple of episodes, is just like there's this thought that EA bought PopCap and ruined it, is this super simplified version of the history of PopCap. But the truth is we kind of ruined ourselves. Like we in order to become the kind of company that EA would want to buy, we slowly but surely sort of started to take apart the things that had made us what what we liked the most about being PopCap. And
Okay.
again, it's this sort of thing, much like Prince of Toys, like there's no bad guys, and there wasn't any obvious like, well, this is where everything went wrong, or this was the obvious bad decision. It's just one of these sorts of things that you turn around and look at it like years later and you're going like, how did we end up here, right? Like so
Now, I think
that's
both
part
of
of
them have the same kind of thing, right? Like
yeah.
it is you are here because it is the result of the decisions that you set in stone. PopCap was going to get sold. This is what happens when you try to approach it that way.
Well, and on that bombshell, gonna thank you, Eric, for coming by the unofficial PopCap PopCast. I think we're good. I think we're ready to sail off into the sunset for another episode. Thanks again, Eric, for coming on. You've been really cool. It's great to be able to talk about it in such detail about some of these projects and stuff, pieces of the history. Isaac, anything else you want to add?
No, that covers it for me.
Folks, like, subscribe, tell your friends, write reviews on Apple Podcasts.
Tell your pa.
Do all that business. And with that has been another episode of the Unofficial PopCap PopCast. Yeah! PopCap! Try to do it quiet enough that the Zoom...
It's still got part of it. Still cut out part of it.
They'll probably... Damn you, Zoom!
Oink.